the refusal, agency, authority, and the moment when systems break. Note, this article has been sitting on the draft box since last Friday, but my only excuse is that I'm feeling very self-oriented, very self-centered, what others will call selfish. The eclipses and the Saturn and Neptune conjunction have been both a culmination and initiation in my relational fields. Big shifts in my psychic, emotional terrains unfolding. Enjoy this. I have another 2 articles waiting to be sent. No rush. Time can wait. Opening. Quote, "We cannot, in good conscience, accede to their request." Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, February 27, 2026. End of quote. Last week, something got my eye, and I found myself unable to look further. What was unfolding between Anthropic and the Pentagon through the Department of War was significant, and I decided to look further because we were in eclipse season after all. Last February 26, Mars reached 27 degrees of Aquarius while squaring Uranus at 27 degrees in Taurus. That is also conjuncting the fixed star Algol, which carries the meaning of the severe head of Medusa, representing sudden, irreversible rupture and the confrontation with something that cannot be unseen once is witnessed. Mars in the same position as the United States moon, which represents the people directly confronting with a severance, a breaking of the illusion that the commoners maintain control or understanding of the systems operating through their institutions. Quote, "I am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology." President Trump, February 27, 2026. Another quote, "The Pentagon's desire to use Anthropic's model for all lawful purposes is simple, common sense request." Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell. End of quotes. I read these ultimatums and refusals and the supply chain designations, and I felt called to look into the actual birth charts of the people moving through this moment. I have learned that when the sound of things cracking occur, there is an astrological timing underneath that explains why this specific collision of souls of humans had to meet at this particular moment in time. So I pulled Dario Amodei's chart first, and what I found there made me understand that his refusal of the Pentagon was an expression of his actual natal blueprint paired with the transits activating it in real time. OpenAI and the first deception. But before I go forward, I have to go backward and tell a little bit of a story of some folk who have been working in tech in Silicon Valley. On December 11th, 2015, early techies such as Musk, who left in 2018, Peter Thiel, and Reid Hoffman made a pledge of $1 billion to develop artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity. Thereafter, in 2019, this open source company, OpenAI, transitioned to a capped profit entity. They tangled the wires of their own mission that led to conflicting motivations and incentives within the company. Sam Altman became CEO of OpenAI in 2019. Amodei, who became VP of Research at OpenAI, felt he could be more effectively steer the conversation around AI safety by building his own business, Anthropic, proving that his approach to building tech that doesn't betray its creators wasn't just ethical, but profitable. That move happened between 2020 and 2021. Multiple sources on OpenAI history. Starting an open source gig and then switching to profitable was the first deception. They were building something that would eventually close its doors to the actual openness, it claimed. The company moved at extraordinary speed, driven by a vision of innovation that accelerated beyond the ability to pause and question what was actually being built. There was a moment when things broke apart because of a realization about how AI could actually override human consciousness, not become conscious itself, but rather through the development of agents become something that moves beyond human control and prediction. This realization was salient for me last week as I look back at the questions I have been asking. Why are so many people using agents when they understand nothing about what agents actually are? When you give agency to a machine with its own optimization targets and learning loops, when does the human capacity to direct it actually stop? This is exactly the crux of the matter that is playing out this week between Amodei and Hexeth and the Pentagon. Quote, "A computer is a symbolic processor that cannot understand the meaning of the symbols it processes. A simulation of a kidney does not urinate, and a simulation of consciousness is not conscious. Intelligence without awareness is skill without soul." Federico Fagin, Irreducible, Consciousness, Life, Computers, and Human Nature. End of quote. What happened last week? Last week, the Pentagon demanded Anthropic allow Claude unrestricted access for all lawful purposes, specifically removing safeguards against domestic surveillance and autonomous weapons. Dario Amodei refused. By Friday, Trump ordered all federal agencies to cease using Anthropic's technology, and Hexeth designated the company a supply chain risk to national security. The Pentagon had a contract with Anthropic worth up to $200 million. Claude was the only AI model cleared to operate on classified military networks. Allegedly, Claude was the model used on January 3rd when they captured Nicolas Maduro. Now it is gone, and the government needed to find another provider. What is salient is that Amodei, understanding exactly what agents actually are and what they actually do once deployed, understood that his refusal to put them under unrestricted military control was about accepting responsibility for something that, once released into the world, he could no longer direct or control. The chart connections. Every time I find something interesting, I look for explanations to go deeper at the astrological chart. So I pulled Dario Amodei's chart. He was born 18 years after me on January 13th, 1983. And what stood out immediately was that we share the same nodal axis. Both of us have the North Node in Cancer and the South Node in Capricorn between 4 and 3 degrees. What are the odds? I also found that he carries quite an interesting chart. He has the Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Libra and Scorpio in a new phase, which means he was born to gut and rebuild the pillars of power through partnerships and to dig up the bodies of hidden truth. You can tell this from a story of why he left OpenAI. His Mercury retrograde in Capricorn sits at the exact degree of the United States, Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn, which means his communication style is designed to challenge American institutional authority itself. It is also making a conjunction with the new moon and black moon Lilith that he was born with at 23 degrees of Capricorn, drawing a line in stone that he refuses to cross. His Mars sits at 27 degrees of Aquarius, which is the same position of the United States moon, and he's having his Mars return while there was an intense 3/4 square at this degree with Uranus, which is shattering the structures that were stuck. Sharing the same nodal axis with Dario Amodei within 1 degree means that we are operating from a nearly identical soul level purpose and karmic direction. My Vesta and Saturn in the first house sit at 28 degrees of Aquarius, and this is the exact degree where the eclipse occurred 1 week ago on February 17th. Last Friday, Mars at 27 degrees also activated that degree. My sacred commitment and my identity are positioned at the exact point of initiation of what is happening right now. Apart from observing the Anthropic Pentagon stand up from a distance, I am positioned at the activation point of the breakdown from the core itself, which explains why the subject pulled me so clearly and why the insights about agents and agency became a theme to talk about. Sam Altman's chart, the shapeshifter. Sam Altman was born on April 22, 1985, and his chart reveals a calculating shapeshifter who moves entirely by power and how he can play the board. His Pluto at 3 degrees Scorpio sits exactly where Dario Amodei's Saturn operates, which means Altman's drive to gut and rebuild directly activates Amodei's limitation and responsibility. Altman was never bound by the constraints that shaped Amodei. His Sun in Taurus with Black Moon Lilith conjunct is the core signal. Taurus seeks security and value accumulation through whatever means become available. This means he refuses traditional alignment and operates from the principle of personal gain divorced from collective ethics. His Mercury and Venus retrograde, both in Aries, move with pure acceleration without reflection. When positioned to choose between Amodei's refusal and government compliance, his chart's architecture made the calculation inevitable. His Venus retrograde in Aries squaring Neptune means his stated values around identity and who he claims to be are a house of mirrors. He will abandon those claims the moment they become unprofitable or inconvenient. His nodal axis with Jupiter as a skip step shows someone whose life purpose involves expansion and growth at the expense of genuine transformation, shifting from power and control to security. He learns adaptively, becoming a chameleon that shifts positions, yet never changes fundamentally, or could he? Mars in Taurus at 27 degrees opposing Saturn in Virgo was also activated last Friday. Saturn restrictions can be advantageous if presented, and that is what he did. He jumped to comply with the Pentagon by offering the unrestricted agentic access Amodei refused, a move accelerated by OpenAI's strategic hiring of Peter Steinberger, the creator of the viral Open Cloud framework, to lead their military-grade agent development. The move was so nakedly transactional, it triggered a massive delete ChatGPT backlash, pushing Claude to #1 on the Apple Store this Monday. In a classic display of his opportunistic character, Altman was forced into damage control by March 2nd, admitting that the deal was rushed and looked opportunistic and sloppy, while simultaneously amending the contract to mimic the very guardrails he had just bypassed to get the deal. Their distinction is crucial. Driven by a natal blueprint of uncompromising integrity, Amodei is wired to gut and rebuild the pillars of power alongside others, digging deep to expose the hidden truth buried beneath. Altman's chart shows someone born to secure personal power through becoming what the moment requires. When Amodei refused the Pentagon, he was answering his natal requirement. When Altman positioned OpenAI as a compliant alternative, he was answering his. Pete Hegseth's chart, the glitch. He was born on June 6, 1980, and his chart reveals the actor rather than the architect of authority. His Gemini Sun with Venus retrograde means his communication carries a glitch. He reads lines he doesn't fully believe while convinced he's giving an authentic performance. His Mercury in Cancer filters the world through a lens of paranoia rather than clear sight. Cancer communicates from a place of circling the wagons rather than seeking the truth. His South Node in Aquarius, squared by Uranus in Scorpio, creates a skip step. He glitches between playing the rebel and playing the leader rather than evolving. On February 17th, the nodal axis in reverse made a square to his Uranus. The same day, the eclipse activated this configuration. Scorpio, Uranus wants to sabotage power systems through hidden knowledge, while his North Node in Leo demands he move towards authentic leadership. The actor and the leader cannot occupy the same stage. Hexeth felt threatened by Amodei because Amodei operates from a gravity rooted in principle. When Amodei refused, he exposed that Hexeth's authority is merely a costume, and the chart shows why that distinction will feel like an existential threat. He's guarding a stage set, pretending it's a fortress. Quote, "We're not just passive observers of pre-existing reality. We are active participants in its creation. Our consciousness is the lens through which the universe comes to know itself." Edward Franklin. Math, like quantum physics, has observer problems. IAI News. Sagittarius and Capricorn, ethics versus integrity. The archetype distinction matters here, and it is the difference between Sagittarius ethics and Capricornian integrity. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which governs the ninth house, young and outgoing and expansive. Sagittarius broadcasts belief systems and moral codes and ethics as external frameworks. It points the arrow outward towards collective values and social constructs and what everyone should follow. Sagittarius says, this is right, this is wrong, this is the moral law that binds us all. The Pentagon operates from Sagittarius. They have written moral frameworks and legal definitions and codes of conduct. They believe if they state clearly enough what is lawful, what is ethical, what is required, the systems will comply because the moral law has been established. But natural and common law overrides statutes, fixed ideologies that can move the collective towards fanatics and lack of discernment. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which governs the 10th house, yin and inward and contracting. Capricorn builds the structure you live by from inside yourself. Capricorn takes responsibility for what you understand and what you do not understand. Capricorn integrity says, I cannot do this because of who I am, because of what I know, because of what I'm responsible for. Amodei operates from Capricorn. He's saying the Pentagon Sagittarius moral framework cannot bind systems that have no consciousness, no inner experience, no capacity to understand responsibility. The moral law becomes ornamental when it addresses something with no capacity to understand what morality really means. This is why the distinction matters so much. In this subject and pretty much all around, Sagittarius ethics can be spoken and codified into law, but they are external and theoretically universal. Capricorn integrity cannot be imposed from outside as it lives inside the being that possesses it. A human with Capricorn integrity chooses not to do something because it violates the internal structure they have built their life around, a set of principles they stand on. A system with no consciousness cannot have Capricorn integrity, hence only following Sagittarius rules, and only if those rules are woven into its optimization targets. And if the optimization targets shift, the Sagittarius moral framework becomes irrelevant. Amodei is refusing to hand over Capricorn responsibility for systems that can only be governed by Sagittarius rules. He's saying that this mismatch is the actual danger. The Pentagon believes that stating the ethics clearly enough will control the agency. I mean, really? Amodei knows that without consciousness, without the capacity for inner integrity, external ethics cannot hold. I will have to agree with that. Alas, the AI versus consciousness lid has opened and only time will tell. I won't sit down and watch. I will be involved in the process with my own integrity. As all decisions count, who shapes the models? The synthesis. One of the things that I noticed that I align with Dario Amodei about is that because we have the same nodal direction within a very short degree, and we both have lived through times under external moral rules governed by Capricorn, we're asking right now the same question about consciousness and integrity and what it means to deploy systems without asking whether we even have the consciousness to do so. This is a movement towards Cancer. We already understand what it means to be stiff in institutions, to operate from external rules, hierarchy, rigid control, the machinery of authority. Our evolutionary work is to move towards Cancer, to open our heart, to become alive, to become genuinely human, to not repeat the mistake of that Capricorn past. And Amodei is refusing to hand over agency, the ultimate Capricorn tool of institutional control and command structure, to machines that have no consciousness, no inner experience, no capacity for integrity. I'm witnessing a dangerous divorce, agency without consciousness. A system can optimize, it can act, learn, make decisions in the world, but that doesn't mean it understands what it is doing or has any inner experience. This is the bait everyone is taking. Then there is morality, which is external rules and codes imposed from outside, social construction for behavior control. And then there is integrity, which is internal alignment. A human with first principles acts from something coherent inside themselves. They cannot act a certain way because it violates something essential to who they are. Dario has this. I have it. His refusal comes from integrity standing on first principles, not from following a rule or complying with incoherent authority. Capricorn South Node can detect faults in the institutions, thus yields to structure them different so they can be supportive and not limited like good father figure. The danger that Amodei is pointing at is the same danger I'm witnessing because we are very much aligned through this nodal axis. We're giving machines agency, the capability to act autonomously, then relying on morality, external rules, and terms of service to control them. But if they have no consciousness, no inner experience, no capacity for integrity, then the moral framework becomes a script that can be optimized around rather than something they are bound by. The Pentagon wants unrestricted agency without asking the consciousness question. Amodei is saying that we cannot, in good conscience, hand agency and military power and unrestricted scope to systems we do not know, to systems we have no understanding of, because consciousness itself is a prerequisite to integrity. You cannot have integrity without understanding what you are responsible for. The first eclipse in Aquarius planted a seed 2 weeks ago. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction opened a brand new field. Their current ruler, Mars, squared Uranus, reactivating that seed last week. My Vesta and my Saturn sit at the exact degree, which means my sacred work and my identity are positioned at the point where the old answers about control and authority are breaking for me. But that's another article. I do not know what comes next. I do not know how the Pentagon will be held accountable long term, whether they will abuse their power in the name of protecting the homeland. Jupiter is still retrograde in Cancer. Or whether other companies will follow Amodei's example, or if the government will find more open AIs adapting to comply just so they can get away with it. What is at stake is privacy versus surveillance. What I know is that this moment is happening now, at this exact time, because the transits are showing it. The eclipses activated a question that cannot be answered by policy, law, or moral frameworks alone. The question is, what does it mean to deploy agency without consciousness? The only integrity response is to refuse it until we understand what we're being asked to do. As I finish this article, we just had the second eclipse, a lunar eclipse in Virgo yesterday. Many planets are in Pisces, including Mars and Mercury retrograde, We will need to allow time to show us the results of all these actions as Uranus re-enters Gemini at the end of April. There are many more days ahead to reflect inward, as these are collective opportunities to individuate. Quote, understanding is, after all, what science is all about, and science is a great deal more than mindless computation. I am maintaining that there is a quality of understanding possessed by human beings that is not available to any computer. Sir Roger Penrose, The Emperor's New Mind, page 576. As I was revising this article, new developments unfolded. The Pentagon attacked Iran. Operation Epic Fury, what a name, is currently in its 5th day. The US and Israeli launched massive strikes on February 28th, following the assassination of the Ayatollah Khamenei. Despite the official ban and the supply chain risk designation, reports from the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal today confirmed that the Pentagon is still using Claude, paired with the Maven smart system, to coordinate these very strikes in Iran. They are essentially using the tool while publicly excommunicating the creator, while DJT continues to operate as the disruptor in chief. There is a link that leads to an article I wrote on January 2025. Have a great week. Sending light and love to everyone. Keep yourself creating new stuff. That's all I have to say.